Hello and welcome back to Annie's channel. My name is Kim, also known as Annie's Crafter, and I'm so thrilled to be joining you today for the zigzag table runner. Now this table runner pattern, I love it so much. Number one, it comes from free-quilting.com. It is a sister site of Annie's, and all of the patterns that you see are all free. Every single one. All you have to do is sign up and with your email address and you're good to go. There's another reason why I love this pattern, because it is strip piecing. This makes it super easy for an experienced quilter, or if you're a beginning quilter, it is a great way for you to have a jumping off platform to experience a quick and easy way to learn some quilting. The last part I love about this table runner is because the pattern comes in two different lengths. Today I'll be making the 47-inch length table runner. Now I know this picture looks a little dated, but bear with me. Yeah, it's from 1988, but we can always jazz it up and make it special just for us using these fabrics. Now, as you can see, I'm going with a patriotic theme. My patriotic theme fabric comes from the Annie's Holiday Quilters Club. I just got this in the mail literally 2 days ago, and I know Annie's is so generous that even with the fabric that they've picked for me for these casserole carrier and the pot holder, I can easily make this as well. If I want to use this for the backing, then I probably won't have enough to make these. But Annie's is so generous, I know at least I can make the top with these fabrics. All right, so as you can see, I've already cut all of my pieces to the right size. And now we're going to teach you how to put together a strip piecing quilt with very little tools and a lot of a time saver. So stay tuned. You guys are gonna really like this one. It's gonna be beautiful. I went ahead and grabbed some of my colored pencils. This is one of my favorite tricks when I'm changing colorways. I go ahead and mark in the pattern the colorway change differences, so I know that I won't get messed up as I'm sewing along. And so I've done that for the first little bit here. And when you're strip piecing things together, it makes it really simple. You just go from one end to the other, take it out of your sewing machine, add the next strip, and you're almost ready to go as soon as you press. So that is exactly what I'm planning to do right now. I'm here at the sewing machine and I have a couple of tips. I always like to put my darker fabric on the bottom. That way I can see if the edges are off, because especially when, like today, I'm not using a ton of pins. I will use them later. I did load my sewing machine with a 1/4 inch foot and some light gray thread for piecing. That's my all-time favorite color to piece with because it hides so well in both neutral and also very dark fabrics. All right, no need to backstitch, time to go. Now that I've sewn the pieces together and pressed towards the darker fabric, it's time for me to cut this sections into 3 4.5 inch pieces. Now it's really easy to use your Omni Grid see-through ruler, just line it up on the edge. There's your first cut, and now I get to do my second one. And now my last. And because this is a very thrifty table runner, as you can see, that's all I had left for this side piece, just to shore it up. So make sure you're really lining up those edges correctly. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next step. Now the next thing is I'm gonna take my 3 larger triangles of the cream color, and I'm going to make the triangles that go on the edge of the table runner. And it doesn't matter if I have them right side up or right side down. I just want to make a stack and go ahead and grab my see-through ruler once again. And what I'll be doing is I'll be slicing it this way and then this way. The best thing I can advise you on when you're slicing big triangles is to not use a very large cutting mat. If you use a smaller cutting mat, it's easier to rotate the cutting mat instead of the fabric. That way things are still lined up and ready to go and you don't have any mess ups. And it saves you a ton of time. Now I have my 12 triangles all ready to go. Now it's time to add those cream triangles. Now I do need to follow the directions and place them exactly where they need to go, in the direction they need to go. So this unit here will only have an A piece here, and the following 2 and 3 units will have one on each side, and then you can put the rest off to the side. Now when you're ready to go ahead and sew, make sure you're lining up this top line right here, and it's okay to have a little dog ear, and that's what they're called, a little dog ear on the bottom. Make sure when you're ready to go and sew that you get right sides together, and you can pin if you'd like. And I'm going to go ahead and take care of sewing all these together and show you the next step after this. I've got these 3 all done with the cream triangles on the edges. Now I've got the rest of these strips ready to go. Like I said, this is going to be quick and done before you know it. Just going to go ahead and sew these on, and then we'll work on the next row. And to make this strip piecing go even faster, I call it the assembly line method. I just add each strip as I progress down the road, and then I just snip off the one that's at the end. Go ahead and turn it around, add my triangle, and I'm ready to go. But just see how quick and easy this will come together. Just letting your thread go for a couple stitches in between. And I have one more to go. Snip it off, bring it over, turn it around, make sure it's on the opposite way. Right sides together, and you're good to go. Now that these are sewn together, I have one last step before we start assembling. We're going to grab the remaining pieces that we have, which is 2 triangles and 4 4.5-inch squares. We're going to put our patriotic little saying one here, and then have a base square on the other side. And then we're going to attach one of these A triangles on here and do this and sew all of 3 of those together, and then we can start assembling our table runner. So I have my zigzag table runner laid out here on my work surface, and as you can see, this is where the zigzag comes into play. It also would look good if I had this darker piece of fabric in here, but I wanted some variation in the middle. Now, when you're piecing this together, I want you to focus on a couple things. Number 1, you want to focus on where are these blocks intersecting here at the corners and on the edges. For these longer blocks, you will still have a seam like this one that will notch together. And when I mean notch together, when you put right sides together and are ready to get sewing, you can see that because I adhered to my press to the darker fabric, that these 2 actually intersect and notch together, as well as these notch together as well. So this will make sure that you will have absolutely perfect seams on the interior of your zigzag table runner. All right, now it's just time for me to head to my sewing machine and get this all stitched together. So I have my table runner all pressed and ready to go, and I've almost finished completing with this border here on the edge. This is that red border I'm attaching onto all sides. This is the 37-inch side, and this is the 11. And what I'm going to do is show you how to make a mitered corner. And as you can see in my hand, I have my water-soluble marker that I got from the Annie's Creative Quilters Fabric Club, and I'm going to have a point of reference. Now, I'm going to use the point of reference of somewhere down here as my point of reference. You can obviously use a angle if you want, but this is going to be my point of reference for this mitered corner. That way, when I get to this corner, I can use the opposite side of that block as my reference. Then I'm going to grab my straight edge, and I'm going to put the one that naturally falls on top up on top first. As you can see, I've also just taken my iron and pressed this corner. It makes everything really nice and slick when things lay down flat. So as you can see, there's a natural one that goes on top and one that's not. I'm going to go ahead and that looks like it lays a little bit flatter. Then I'm going to line up my reference point here and my corner, which is right there on the edge of that block. Then using my water-soluble marker, I'm going to line it all up and draw where I'm going to have my straight edge and my stitching. And I'm going to go ahead and draw also on the other piece of fabric on the bottom. It gives me kind of a point of reference as well. Then I'm going to flip-flop And everything should lay fairly in the same spot using that line as my reference. And of course it lines up right in the corner and on top of that line. So I'm going to go ahead and draw. Okay, this is where my stitching line is going to be. Now you can do this one of two ways. You can go ahead and stitch this first with right sides together. You just kind of ease everything into it, and I like to put a pin into it. Or what you can do is be a little bit more precise and cut 1/4 of an inch away on either side. That way the edges line up. That way you just are doing some sewing and not worrying about making sure that these blue lines line up. And of course you want to make sure that you cut them separately, and you make sure that your table runner is way out of the way. We don't need any mistakes at this point, because that would be tragic. All right, now I have 2 edges to line up. Going to place them right sides together, making sure they line up. And then all I have to do is sew 1/4 of an inch away from that seam edge. So I cut the backing fabric to the same size and dimensions of the topper. And I also have added some batting. Now this is adhered with some spray adhesive onto the back of the topper. Now these are right sides together, and then the quilt batting's on top. What I'm going to do is, when I go to my sewing machine, I'm going to flip it over and sew 1/4 of an inch all the way around the topper. But I also will make sure that I leave a gap about 1.5 inches to 2 inches so I can turn it inside out. So I've gone ahead and trimmed the edges of my batting, and now I'm just pulling or pushing the fabric through the hole. And you just have to be gentle with this. The greater the hole, the better as far as ease, but on the back end, the larger the hole, the harder it is to close shut by hand. So you just have to weigh what's best for you. Now that we've got it mostly inside out, let's talk about these points in the corners. You want to make sure when you pull it through that you have really fine points on the tips of your table runner. Now if those don't come through, there's 2 different ways to tackle that. One is to take your finger and go in through the hole one more time, making sure that the point does get there. Sometimes I like to use a skewer or maybe a nail cuticle pusher, and I go into the corner. Some other times I just like to use a pencil. Pencil works great, especially a dull one, because I don't want to poke too badly, and I don't want to poke through the fabric as well. So we just find that tip, push it out, and there you go. Now let's work on the other corners. I like to push and round these ones. And then we are almost finished. It took a few minutes to sort out the corners, but I got them all done, and I just used the tip of a pencil. Now we're going to go ahead and do the quilting. What I like to do is called stitch in the ditch, and that's just along the edge, and the ditch is the lower side of the 2 seams. So I'm just going to zigzag all the way around the edge, and I'm going to make sure that I get this edge right here all top stitched down so it'll be nice and straight and perfect every time I had to throw it in the washer. Other than that, we're all ready to go. Thank you so much for joining us here at Annie's, and I hope you pick up your free pattern at free-quilting.com and make yourself a really easy peasy, wonderful holiday table runner. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.